with all of the organizations and the elected officials and people who are standing, it indicates the importance of the issue that we are dealing with. I ask everyone to join me today to stand as one. And today in the city of Houston, many different organizations, personalities, but we stand today as one to make clear that what we are opposed to, that we are opposed to the unjust and immoral policy of ripping apart immigrant families and taking innocent children away from their parents. The new practice of separating immigrant children from their parents and guardians at the border violates decency and is not representative of our American values. Quite simply, it is not representative of who we are. As mayor of the fourth largest city in the country, the most diverse and welcoming city in the country, I must join, along with the rest of us, others and their voices who have spoken out against this current policy that will separate infant children from their parents and or their relatives, especially when the plan is to put children in a former warehouse and homeless shelter on the edge of downtown Houston, children from the age of 0 to 17. Let me be clear about how we got to where we are today. I did not, as mayor, give my blessing to this deal. I found out only last week that the building owner, David Denenberg, signed a long-term lease for his property at 419 Emancipation with a company called Southwest Key. Until last week, the city of Houston, people on my staff, were in the process of negotiating with Mr. Denenberg to lease this very same property for our low-level homeless shelter. The city once leased the building for people displaced by Hurricane Harvey, and we were talking to David Denenberg about leasing it again as a shelter for long-term homeless people. It was going to be a collaborative effort between the city of Houston and Harris County. In fact, the city of Houston was going to be providing navigators to entice our people on our streets, from the streets to 419 Emancipation. The county was going to join with providing behavioral and mental health services. And a part of the inducement is that we were going to be providing meals at no cost to the homeless population and bringing them off of our streets. And then for those who may not have wanted to be under a roof, we were going to allow them to sleep out on the lawn. That was the plan. We thought it was the best way of reducing and mitigating the homeless population, bringing them together, and then the city and the county would be working collaboratively to attend to their substance and mental behavioral health issues. And we thought it was an excellent, excellent location. At first, we were not told who the new tenant was. And quite frankly, it was kept as a secret. Southwest Key also gave us no notice that it planned to come to town. I found out about it when immigration activists heard about it and passed the word to my staff, and then people from the news media start asking questions. We met with the representatives of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the Offices of Refugee Resettlement, just this morning. And then for the first time today, about 1 hour ago, I met in my office with Southwest Key representatives. Mr. Sean Sanchez, who is over Southwest Key, along with 2 other of his high-level officials. And he did acknowledge that they have leased the facility from Mr. Denenberg to house children that are being separated from their parents or their relatives. They did say that they will provide compassionate care to the children separated from their families. And let me just say, I do not question their intent. I don't question that. But I also made it clear to Southwest Key that I do not support this facility being used for this purpose. And let me just say this. Oftentimes we have a way of rationalizing what we do. And we end up saying and convincing ourselves that but for our actions, these kids will be in a worse situation. They'll remain at the border, or they'll remain in these cages. And so, Mayor, what we are doing is that we are providing compassionate care for these kids. And if we don't do it, their situation will be worse. I have done my best to try to stay clear from the national dialogue on many issues. I've done my best to try to stay focused on the issues that confront the city of Houston, recognizing that we need the partnership of the national, the feds, the state, working with the city. So I've done my best to try to avoid the politics of ruffling people's feathers in order for us to move forward in the city collectively and to meet our needs. But this issue is different because this involves our children. This one is different. And there comes a time when Americans, when Houstonians, when Texans have to say to those higher than ourselves, this is wrong. This is just wrong. And the policy and this new policy of using the children to advance another policy of trying to deter is just not who we are. And we have to be very careful that we don't sanitize ourselves and convince ourselves that if we don't do this, these children's lives will be far worse. The question then becomes, if we don't speak up, if we don't say no, then these type of policies will continue. And good people can no longer be quiet in our society. Quite frankly, I think we've been quiet too long. So good people people who are well-intended, people who don't want to cause any problems or ruffle any feathers, the good people now have to say, you've gone too far. We've gone too far. And what I've indicated to the leadership at Southwest Key, at some point in time, we have to say to those who are asking us to provide these type of services that this is wrong, and that I have no objection at all if, for example, Southwest Key was providing accommodations and care for the family as a whole. I would have no problems there. I would have no problems. And I don't believe we would be standing here in this press conference if we were talking about providing shelter or accommodations for the entire family unit. But it is unimaginable to me for an infant or 1-year-old or 3-year-old to be separated from his or her mom or father or family members, taken to another location, not knowing when they would be reunited, and for our society, who we are, to be silent or to say we're going to wait for legislation to go through the process when no one knows how long that's going to take place, when the reversal can take place right now, today. And so what I've said to Southwest Key, with all due respect, is that I do not want to be an enabler in this process. I do not want the city to participate in this process. I do not want our facilities and property owners to participate in this process. That I would ask Mr. Denenberg to reconsider, and I would ask Southwest Key to reconsider. Because if we facilitate these type of policies, then what do we do the next time? It becomes a little bit easier. And the next time, it becomes a little easier. And then one morning, we will wake up and ask ourselves, what sort of society have we allowed ourselves to create? And so there comes a point in time we draw the line. And for me, the line is with these children. We draw the line. Lastly, the fire department has yet to inspect this facility. The health department has yet to provide a food permit or a shelter permit to this facility. And as far as I know, the state has yet to license this facility. I would ask the state not to move forward. I would ask the state not to move forward. And lastly, I would ask Southwest Cape, because let me say this in all fairness, they do good work. They have attended a lot of kids, those unaccompanied and those juveniles. They do good work. But I would say to Southwest Cape, you cannot combine the good with facilitating the policy that's bad and come out like a rose. You cannot do that. And I would ask them to reconsider, because this is not who we are.